How can something be considered gluten-free in one country but not gluten-free in another, even though technically it doesn't contain the gluten protein at all? Today, we are talking about the issue with oats. This little guy right here causes so many problems, so many discussions. Right, so firstly, I just wanted to apologize because I did promise that I would put this video out a lot sooner than I did. I just never got around to it, but here we are. Thank you for being so patient. This oat situation I find affects me quite personally. I know it obviously affects all celiacs, but it affects me because I'm from New Zealand, a place where they don't consider oats gluten-free, but I live in the UK where they do consider oats gluten-free. So yes, at the moment, I do eat oats. And every time I've posted something with oats on my Instagram, I get at least one person asking me why I'm disrespecting my country's standing on oats. Who friggin' knew that oats could be so political? But the actual reason why I do eat oats is I was diagnosed just a couple of weeks before I moved over here, and I didn't even know that oats weren't considered gluten-free in New Zealand. I just hadn't got round to that, you know? So when I moved over here, I just ate what they said is gluten-free, which is oats. Didn't even think about it until I actually started posting recipes with oats in them, and I got a couple of New Zealand celiacs and friends saying, hey, just so you know, we can't actually make this because oats aren't considered gluten-free in New Zealand. And I was like, what? Why? How could one thing be considered two different things in each country? And that's what we're looking into today. So hopefully you'll find this interesting. If I knew that oats were not considered gluten-free in New Zealand before I moved over here, would have I eaten oats? Honestly, I'm not too sure. I just can't say for certain whether I would have decided to keep them out of my diet or not. Anyway, back to oats. The oat. Avena sativa, I think that's how you call it, sometimes called the common oat, is a species of cereal grain grown for its seed. That was from Wikipedia. Oat products are frequently contaminated by other gluten-containing grains, mainly wheat and barley, and that's just because they're usually grown together and processed on machinery that also processes other gluten-containing grains. However, the pure, uncontaminated oat by itself does not contain the gluten protein. So, what's the big deal then? Firstly, we have to look at gluten and understand what gluten is just a little bit better. Gluten is a general name for the proteins found in wheat, barley, and rye. The two main proteins in wheat gluten are glutenin and gliadin. Look, I'm just going to throw this in here. I'm not good at pronouncing Latin names of anything, so apologies if I get it wrong. So the two main proteins in wheat gluten are gliadin and glutenin. Gliadin is the one that gives us celiacs health issues. Now, oats contain a very similar protein called avenin. It's not the same, but it is similar enough for some celiacs to react in the same way that they do for gluten. It's debated that between 1% and 25% of celiacs have a reaction to uncontaminated pure oats. And yeah, that's a huge margin, but the research is still ongoing. So why is there a divide on whether oats are considered gluten-free or not? Great question. And apologies, I'm just going to read something off my iPad that I wrote down because there's no way I can remember the names of these things. So, in New Zealand and Australia, the definition of gluten includes glutenin and gliadin in wheat, hordein in barley, and sicillin in rye, as well as avenin in oats. So oats fall under the umbrella of what is gluten in New Zealand. Research by Dr. Robert Anderson for Coeliac NZ found that 1 in 5 people with celiac disease react to pure uncontaminated oats. And because we don't know who that 1 in 5 is, and gut damage can actually happen in celiacs without symptoms, the advice from Coeliac New Zealand is that oats should not be consumed by celiacs. Other people can eat it, fine. And to be honest, I think that's a very responsible and reasonable way of looking at it, because there are people who have celiac disease that suffer no symptoms, who have refractory or asymptomatic celiac disease. Coeliac UK have a different set of advice, which is that gluten-free oats can be introduced to your diet at any stage. However, if you are having ongoing symptoms, it's best to go back to your healthcare professional so they can monitor what you're doing, perhaps give you another blood test, see if they are making you react. And Coeliac UK also points out the benefits of oats, which I also think is a really important thing to remember in this discussion. Oats are actually a superfood. So if they're not actively harming your gut, they're actually a really good source of soluble fibre, which helps maintain a healthy gut. So yeah, so they could be either really bad for celiacs or really good. Oats are also a really good source of antioxidants, and I believe they're also high in folate and iron, which are things that celiacs are often deficient in. So I can totally understand that if you are a celiac that knows when they've been gluten, that shows physical symptoms and doesn't have those symptoms when you eat oats, then it's totally understandable if you want to continue eating oats. But then again, as Celiac NZ points out, there are a whole group of celiacs that don't know when they've been gluten because they have asymptomatic or refractory celiac disease and wouldn't know if oats are included in what is doing the damage to their gut. I'm just going to quickly read from my notes again because there's an interesting quote that I want to read you. So there was also some recent research conducted by Dr. Jason Allen Tyden with the Coeliac UK grant about clarifying the safety of oats in celiac disease. And they even mentioned, quote, in Australia and New Zealand, oats are still excluded from the gluten-free diet. Patients there are desperate to eat them. Which is pretty funny because I don't know a celiac in New Zealand who is that upset about not eating oats. So a bit of a swing from Dr. Jason there. The celiac disease research field is pretty hardcore. The conclusion of Dr. Jason's study, by the way, was that most studies support clinical safety of oats for the majority of people with celiac disease. It's pretty clear that it's universally accepted that a minority of celiacs will react to oats. The only difference is how each country uses that information. Also, bit of a sidebar, something that I'd be interested in finding out is whether celiacs can develop a reaction to oats further on down the line after their diagnosis. I don't know whether it's just if you don't react to oats, you just don't forever. But yeah, it would be really interesting to find out. I couldn't find anywhere online that had that information, but if you know someone that might know, or if you know yourself, please comment down below because I would love to find out the answer to that. In conclusion, at the end of the day, my advice would be just to follow the advice of whatever country you live in. Because that's the country that's treating you for celiac disease, so just listen to your local healthcare professional. For me personally, because I've continued to eat oats but I haven't personally had any adverse symptoms, I've had blood tests since then that haven't showed any increased antibodies, so I will continue to eat oats until I get back to New Zealand, where of course I will stop eating oats. However, lastly, I would just like to say that because a lot of my recipes are New Zealand recipes, I just 100% promise right here and right now that I will never put oats in my recipes because a lot of my recipes are for New Zealanders, and I think it would be really mean if I put oats in things. So you can count on me to not have oats in my recipes. But yeah, so that's my video for today. I don't know if that answered any questions. Perhaps now you have more. Either way, I really hope you enjoyed it and found this interesting. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I talk about gluten-free things. And if you thought this video was interesting, tell a celiac friend about it. Say, hey, celiac friend, watch this video about oats. I think you'd find it interesting. Yeah, and then they'd think, wow, that's so cool of you to send me this relevant and interesting information, other celiac friends. So, alright, well, if there's any other topics that you'd like me to look into, because I love doing this type of research, let me know in the comments below. Always happy to take suggestions. Some other topics I'd like to look into in depth are the celiac blood tests, the endoscopy, and the whole diagnostic process and where that looks like it might be going in the future. But anyway, that's all from me today. I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next video. See you later.